Welcome to the Smart Live Streamer, episode 001. Let's get this show started. Well, we're so glad you could join us. At the time of this recording, we're all dealing with a worldwide pandemic of COVID-19, and now more important than ever, we're thinking about remote video productions. And our guest today is somebody who is no stranger to remote video production. Him and his partner have developed solutions and cameras, all catering around the special world of NDI. They have devices that are able to integrate with just about anything, decoding and encoding. Our guest today probably needs no introduction if you're in the video space and you've heard the word NDI. It's Eamon Drew with BirdDog. Eamon, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you here today.
Yeah. Look, thank you for having me on. It's great to be here. I'm very honoured to be your first guest on the new live stream that you're doing. So thank you for that. Things are great down here. It's a crazy time in the world with people being quarantined all over the place. It hasn't happened yet in Australia. Well, not in Melbourne. It has in, I think, Queensland already. So people are quarantined up there. But look, so far it hasn't happened here. We're around national games such as Australian rules football, which is one of the largest football sporting codes in the world, are still playing games. They played a game last night. The only difference is that they've got an empty stadium. So far there's there's no quarantine or anything down here, so we'll see what happens.
Well, that's good to know. All around us, we're having to do things a bit differently, and we have to think outside the box for this. BirdDog, I don't think is any different.
I think that's true. Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, it's okay. We're obviously everyone's using the internet right now, and so there is a bit of latency back and forth. So you guys are innovative, and people are looking for innovative ways to do things. So I guess just go into like the BirdDog why. What is the problem that BirdDog is specifically looking at solving?
Yeah, sure. So I'll probably start with a little bit of the history of the company and where we come from. So we're an Australian company. As you can see, it's 9 a.m. down here on Saturday morning. I'm at home, so excuse the backdrop and everything. But look, we started our company about 4 years ago. Before BirdDog, we were actually the company. My partner Dan Mile and myself, we started BirdDog, and before that we owned a company which was called Blonde Robot. And Blonde Robot is a similar company to like OneSource or Broadfield in the USA, where they distribute products and don't sell direct. So we were actually the distributor for NewTek for Australia, New Zealand, and all of Southeast Asia. So we were covering about 16 or 17 countries with NewTek. And when it was early 2016, I think, that they came to us and they started talking to us about NDI and how they were going to announce it. I think they announced it at NAB in 2016. My memory's getting a bit foggy. It's a kind of a long time ago now. But they started talking to us about NDI, and we had a bit of a chat with them, and it seemed like it's really awesome technology for TriCasters to talk to each other, or maybe to get a graphics feed into a TriCaster from another system. And they shared with us the vision for where NDI was going to go, in terms of they were going to make it available to everyone around the world and have like a free software SDK and things like this. So we just could see that this was potentially the IP format that we'd been waiting for so long. Dan and I have been in the video industry. We met each other as teenagers, actually working together at a company that sold capture cards and things like this. So the first digitization cards for analog video on computers. So we go all the way back to trying to capture video on 486 computers and even before that. So the product Miro DC1, I'm not sure if people that are listening to this go back that far, but that term was bought by Pinnacle, and then Pinnacle was acquired by Avid. So we go a long way back. So we've been around in the industry for such a long time, and Dan and I have always been talking for like the last 15 years. We've been talking about at some point there's going to be an IP format that comes out that will sweep the world. There's always that tricky challenge between compression, quality, and bandwidth. So, we saw NDI as being potentially the format that could win, or not win, but, be very ubiquitous in terms of the world of IP video. So, so I do have a little bit of a cold, and I know that's quite sensitive at the moment. So we was talking to NewTek about this NDI format, and I still remember the exact moment. Dan and I were having a chat, and we're talking about NDI and how cool it was, and we're sort of getting our heads around it at this stage and what it meant for our business as NewTek distributors, our customers' business as resellers and as end customers. And I remember we were just talking, and the question came up: okay, so how are we going to get a live camera into a TriCaster? And it was basically that question that started the whole company, because I didn't think any more of it. And Dan, being the kind of guy that he is, I'm sort of more a sales and marketing guy and things like that. Dan also is a very, very good people person, but he's also, I don't know, I've never met a video technician like Dan. He just absorbs things, and it just makes sense to him in a moment. So he can read a spec sheet almost, and then just know how a product works, and then go and do a demonstration. It's kind of amazing. He's just, I like to joke that his brain is a computer. Really, so Dan's just absorbed that, and yeah, I know, right? And he's gone away. I haven't thought any more of the conversation. It was just a throwaway thing that we were chatting about. He comes back 4 or 5 days later, and he's got a drawing of our first product, which is the Studio NDI, and he said, "We're going to make a product that puts NDI into a TriCaster from a live camera." And I said, "You're crazy, but okay, let's do it." And so we embarked on the journey, and we went through all these iterations, to really give you the full company story. We started playing around with Dan did. He started playing around with Raspberry Pis and Arduinos and things like this, and capture cards inside computers. But it became very clear to us very quickly that to do it properly, we needed to make a silicon chip, like a custom chip. And there were so many reasons for that. One is, these FPGAs that we use, which are field programmable gate arrays, the same chips that like Blackmagic, Atomos, AJA, these kind of companies, even Ross Video, pretty much everyone in the video industry uses FPGA. So it's pretty common, kind of industry standard. And the great thing about these chips is once you program them, they just do what you program them to do 24/7. So it's not like throwing software at a CPU where you can have all these wacky, things happen, right? There's software bugs and things like that. Once you've got a solid and steady core program on an FPGA, it will just keep working continuously 24/7. So that's why people in the video industry use them. And that's why we chose to go down that path. It was also quite evident to us that if we're going to camera mount a device, you can't have a fan in it blowing on the CPU because it's going to suck dust into the thing. And, there's all these kind of reasons that we went down that path, and it sort of made sense. So, if we look at the history of video in our industry, and this is how I like to explain what we have done as a company, is in the same way that AJA were the first company to make a ProRes chip. People kind of think of ProRes now, and they think of Atomos because they've got the big banners outside all the halls and things like that. And Atomos do ProRes chips, but in fact, it was AJA who actually invented or developed the first ProRes chip in conjunction with Apple way back in the mid-2000s. And it was with their first product called the IOHD. I don't know if you remember that one, but it was like a kind of a lunchboxy thing and had a handle on the side. I really liked the industrial design of that product at the time. And but yeah, they were the first company to develop a ProRes chip. And then, in the same way that they did that, that is what we did with NDI. So we made a chip that can do NDI encode and NDI decode in silicon. And off the back of that engineering, which took about 2 to 2.5 years, something like that, to get it stable, we started shipping our first product about 1.5 years. Yeah, we started shipping our first product in December 2017, which was our Studio NDI. And since we started shipping that, we've added so many more features to our products. And this is part of the beautiful thing about FPGAs. They're field updatable. So as you come out with a new feature, you can then implement that just via a firmware update. So, when we first launched, we didn't do NDI decode, but we made that a free update for all of our converters. So that's something you can download, and just it's free, and you can update your converter to be bidirectional.
And that bidirectional thing is like that's game changing. Just a use case scenario, if you could imagine, if you go to their website, you'll see the studio. It was really neat because it was almost like this LED display where you could put Cam 1, and it would show you that's your tally light plus the naming of that device. And so you could bring the camera into it, but then you could also decode back to a monitor so that that camera operator could see positioning with graphic overlays and things of that nature applied to it. And it would be doing that bi-directionally.
We haven't been able to do bi-directional at the same time. We're still trying to work on that and get that working, to be completely frank and honest. Hopefully we'll be able to get that done.
And that's
soon.
A goal.
That's a goal, absolutely, and that's it's quite a challenge. It's mathematically very, very difficult. It's all about how many clocks you've got on the FPGA and how you can optimize code and things like this. So we're working on it. We hope to have that out. But for now it's one direction. But I think I'd like to touch on the Studio NDI if I could, because the sort of the features in that product will go a long way towards explaining the ethos of our company in a certain way. As I mentioned, Dan and I have been around in the video industry since, let me get this right. So I think we started working together in 1996, maybe late 96, early 97, somewhere around there. It's, when we were 18. So both teenagers, working in this crazy world of video. I was sort of more on the sales and marketing side and channel sales and account management sort of thing, and cutting my teeth that way. And Dan was on doing tech support and things for TV stations and stuff like this, even as an 18-year-old. So he's a bit of a genius. But so we've been around long enough to understand that with these devices, making a throwdown box is great, right? Like, so we could have made just a throwdown box and did SDI to NDI. Cool. People would have bought it and it would have been a great product. People would have thought this is amazing. We could have made a product that did, NDI to HDMI only, and people would have gone, that's really cool. But the thing about FPGA is there is enough more than a single thing. And part of the vision, and I can't claim credit for this because this is Dan's vision. And I share that now with him, of course. But this is all sort of, Dan. But he came in and he said, look, we need to make something, because he could see straight away the power of IP video and the power of NDI, which is that it's, the video is available everywhere. It can do bi-directional things. It carries data, which isn't just the video or the audio. So it's got metadata built into the stream and all these kind of things. So with Studio NDI, we've got a bit of a saying internally that we don't sort of share too widely, but it's about saving the pelicans. And we want to save the amount of pelican cases that people have to carry with them to gigs. So with Studio NDI, we try to do as much in there as we could. So not only is it like an NDI encoder, but we can say, if it's plugged into, say, a Sony FS7 or an FS5 or any SDI camera, right? We've got SDI coming into the unit. We've got NDI obviously going into your vMix or your TriCast, your StreamStar, whatever, live streaming switching software that you use that supports NDI. But also then we've got HDMI loop out from the SDI port. So that can then go to the HDMI monitor that the camera operator is looking at. And we give you tally border on the loop out as well. So the camera operator knows if they're on program or preview, so they know if they can or can't move the camera. Oops, I'm live to air, I better not touch anything kind of thing with the borders. But then on the front of the unit, we also give you a tally light for the on-air talent, so they can see which camera's live as well. So we're ticking off that need to carry a tally light system around. You don't need to. Tally is built into NDI automatically, and all of the software-based switches just support it. So there's no configuration for Tally. It just works. You plug it in via NDI, and then it just works. And that's part of the power of the bidirectional system of IP video, and because it does metadata as well. So one of the metadata, the things that it carries is the tally information. But then we've also built our own sidecar. I call it a sidecar. That's not really technically correct, but a sidecar that does audio intercom. So you can also plug a headset into our units, and you can load up a free piece of software that we give away called Comms Lite, which has some features, and then there's a paid version as well, which gives you more users and party lines and things like that. But you can plug a headset into the unit as well, and then you can have a talkback system for the camera operators and the show director. So again, now you don't need to carry around a talkback system. So it's not only saving money for the operators, but it's also saving the amount of pelicans they need to carry around, the amount of pelican cases. So that's part of the ethos of our company is we will try and put as much into our boxes as we can, and we do understand production workflows because we've been in it for so long, and we do understand what people need. And that's sort of the ethos of the Studio NDI, and you can see that those features have carried over into the generational products, and we're finding that even though people might be buying say our BirdDog Mini, which has tally and audio intercom, but they're just putting it behind a television as like literally an NDI decoder. So they're sending an NDI to it, and then it's got HDMI out to the TV. It actually doesn't add that much cost on our side to put tally information in there and to put audio intercom. It's just a few low-cost ports, and then the rest of it is just programming on FPGA. And we need to use the same FPGA regardless if it did those things or not, because they don't actually take up so much room. So people have been asking us for a long time to make just a low-cost NDI decoder that doesn't do anything else. And we keep telling them, look, it really wouldn't change the price by much. It might change the price by $20 or $30, but
the chip is really the chip.
What you're looking for? Yeah, the chip is the chip, right? And that's where the most of the cost is. So we could probably make some savings on the aluminum aircraft grade aluminum metal case and things like that. But again, we build production boxes, and we know they get thrown around. So we're very, very mindful of that, and we want to make it a strong case that can survive the life on the road, I guess. So,
sure.
Yeah, so that's sort of who we are, and that's where we come from, I guess. And we're only really just getting started. We've spent so long in engineering now that the hard part was making the chip, and we've got almost unlimited ideas of what we can do with that. And it's just a matter of rolling that into new and better products as we go.
And a lot of these devices are kind of like a Swiss Army knife for a lot of broadcasters, whereas you may have had to have a lot of various different HDMI and SDI converters, and now basically you can carry just a few of these devices, send signal out to a remote room at a projector. That same device can be used to then encode instead of decode, and so I think overall it reduces down the amount of stuff that you have to carry. When you're a smart live streamer, you gotta lighten your load. You cannot go in with 100 different boxes. A lot of the streams that are happening are being packed up inside automobiles, small cars, and they're taken on site. They want limited number of cameras, or cameras that can do multiple things but have great image quality. And look, you can use your existing cameras with these studio devices, and that's really the great thing, is that your existing system can then be upgraded essentially to NDI. And a lot of people use the word NDI in the worship space. Worship or Pro Presenter 7 released NDI capability, and that was a pretty big thing. But there's some flavors of NDI, right? And why don't you talk about your desire and the NDI that you're using?
Yeah. Okay. So we use this. There is two types. When NDI was first announced, there was only one type, which was NDI. So since then, there's been another version announced, which is called NDI HX. So NDI, which is what we use all of our products there, full NDI. Well, now we're calling it full NDI and NDI HX. I'm not really sure. I probably am going to get in trouble with corporate marketing at NDI for not saying the right thing, but I don't really know I think it's high bandwidth and low bandwidth is what they want us to say.
We're not calling Dr. Cross. We're not going to call Dr. Cross.
Yeah, well, that's funny. Dan talked to Dr. Andrew almost every day on Skype, so we have a very close relationship with Dr. Cross and New Tech generally, of course, because we were the first people to start developing hardware for NDI. So, so I think where were we going with this? The two versions of NDI, yeah. So there's NDI and there's NDI HX. NDI NDI is an iframe codec, and NDI HX is basically H.264 wrapped with the beautifulness of NDI, which is, the metadata, the transport stream, the auto discovery services and things like this. But it is a long GOP codec. Full NDI at 1080p 60 can sort of hover up. It's a variable bitrate codec, so it can spike as high as like 140 megabits is what I tell people to allow for, but it probably sits more like around 100 megabits. NDI HX is it's more compressed, and it's to go across, it's for different purposes, of course, but
Sure.
that caps out at about 12 megabits at 1080p 60. And yeah, so, it's different formats for different things. We've been around long enough to sort of know that, broadcasters won't really use a long GOP codec as a, contribution format. And the reason for that is many things. And, I sort of need to be careful because I do, we of course love NDI. We love all flavors of NDI and all the rest,
Sure.
but there is, some technical differences that people should understand before they invest in a long GOP codec. It is a long GOP codec. It can suffer from concatenation artifacts if you compress, like if you cut to a P frame. I'm going to go down the rabbit hole of codecs here. This is a big discussion. It's a theoretical discussion, and it could take hours. But the short version is like an iframe codec is basically the layman's way to describe it is it's a photo every frame. So if you're working with a 30 frame codec, 30 frame picture, then it takes 30 photos every frame or every second. And every frame has all the full information of that frame. A long GOP codec, and there's many long GOP codecs out there. It's not just HX. There's many of them. That takes like an iframe, which is the photo frame, and then it makes predictive frames from there. And those predictive frames calculate the difference between the frame before it and this frame, and then it just puts that information into the frame. And that's how you can compress down to these small data rates. But the challenge then is if you cut to a P frame, say you're feeding in long GOP into your vMix or your TriCaster, and you cut to a P frame, then you start making an iframe based on a P frame, which is made up of information that happened before it. So it's not a full frame of information that you're cutting to. So and that's how you can have this like generation loss. If you do it too many times, you can end up it's like dubbing an old VHS tape and then dubbing it again and dubbing it again. You lose a little bit along the way. And that's why broadcasters will only use iframes as contribution formats, because when they cut to a 10 minutes and 31 seconds, they're cutting to an iframe.
Okay.
If they cut to 28 seconds, 0.7, they're cutting to an iframe. So so that's sort of the difference in a sort of an overview sense.
And then there's latency, right?
Where these. Well, there is a little bit of latency, but often that won't matter. Like if you're doing, live streams for that, it probably doesn't matter that much because people aren't watching. The great thing about these formats is you can send them over and things like that, and beaming back out. These formats are perfect because they're low bandwidth, they're low data rate, so you can get really, very good quality video into a low data rate. So, this is all sort of, I don't know, it's theoretical stuff or whatever, but it does make a difference. And we're sort of trying to educate people that, you probably should be using an iframe codec, whether it's NDI or whether it's something else. You probably should be using an iframe codec for your contribution formats for all of your switching.
Sure. No, it's
where you can.
It's right. Well, and it can save you down some heartache down the long road, right? And I think that's what the important thing is. You make a lot of different products. The camera line that just came out. I want to talk. Anyone can go online right now and go to bird-dog.tv, and you can look at all their cameras. And there's some pretty cool cameras. They have tally light built into them, all of that jazz. But I want to talk about, it's not just a standard PTZ, or as you guys down there would say, PTZ. And so, along with our friends at vMix on the other end of the world, but it is, you're doing stuff a little bit different inside of these cameras. The chips have Sony sensors, and that's important. We hear the low light capability of these cameras is phenomenal.
Yeah, so we have sort of 4 cameras in the range, and we'll be shipping our fifth camera next month. So yeah, we use Sony sensors, and even all the way down to the lowest cost P100. That also uses a Sony sensor, but it doesn't use a Sony image module. So there's sort of 3 things that really make a difference in the picture quality of a camera. One is the sensor, one is the image module, and one is the compression that you're using to output. So you can have a Sony sensor, but if you're not using So you can have high quality sensors, but if you're not using good image modules and you're not using good compression, then you're still not going to get the greatest of pictures. So we've, it's a triangle. It's it's the age old. You can have it cheap, fast, or high quality. Choose two kind of thing. So there's always a trade off, and we've tried to hit all three of those points with our cameras. So sort of the best bang for buck and kind of the crossover between all of those factors is our P200. And that's been, it's been well beyond, we've sold way more than we ever expected to, I'll be completely honest. It's been beyond our expectations with that camera, and we've sold them all over the world. So we've had, people from, Africa sending us photos with their camera. We've had people from, South America and, the depths of Russia. We've got a customer in the Faroe Islands. I didn't even know where that was. I had to look it up. It's, somewhere between England and Iceland, just a tiny little island where the puffins live. And I know, right? So it's been quite humbling and quite, really just beyond our expectations of where these have gone. And it's because it's got a Sony sensor, a Sony image module. It's got, the full NDI compression, plus it's got baseband SDI and HDMI output as well. So you can use it as a baseband video camera in traditional workflows, or you can be outputting, SDI to your HDMI to a monitor for talent to see, or while you're doing NDI into your switcher. So and that's been really pleasing. We've had some people testing it, and I had one person send me a message and said, "I don't know what you guys are doing with this, but it can almost see in the dark." was their quote. So I asked if I could use that in our marketing, and they said, "No, maybe not. I might get in trouble for that one." So,
and that's
the low light capabilities are very, very good.
In the segment that we're reaching, which is individuals who are probably one-man bands or one-woman bands, and they need a versatile tool set. So no different than a Swiss Army knife with the studios and the studio minis, but the cameras are also then a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, because they also include tally and comms as well.
Yeah, they do, and so. Again, it's part of our ethos of we know we're making production cameras. We're not just making a camera to stick in a room and things like that. So so all of our products have the tally light on the front, except for the all-weather cameras, because they probably sit into a different category. But yes, the indoor cameras will all have a tally light on them, and we've even gone one step further with our new P4K. So the P4K is shipping next month. That's got a Sony Exmor 1-inch sensor and a Sony image module. And that this is a beast of a camera, so it's more expensive than all of our other cameras. It's about $8,000 US, but it has things like really high end professional features like gamma. You've got control over the gamma curve to tune that in, and you've got control over black levels. So you've got black level color correction, which these are features reserved for really, really high end cameras. And we've gone one step further with the tally on that. Like it's on the front, but it's also on the side. So it's on the front and side of the unit, and we've also got a big one on the back. So it literally, we're calling it the 360 tally system, because it doesn't matter which direction the camera's facing, you can see the tally light. We understand tally is important, and we try and include it in everything we do.
So around the ethos of what you're trying to do, which is basically provide anything that a production company would need in a real simple way to operate things. I mean, we're talking about plugging cameras and empowering them over a Cat 6 cable or a Cat 5e cable. So relatively inexpensive, no more of the cost of the converters, no more of the cost of the expensive tactical SDI lines. But all of this is about solving people's problems. And we communicated because I need to solve a problem right now, which is basically to remote live stream from Florida to my studio in Cumberland, Maryland for an art and craft TV show. And so we reached out because, hey, how are we going to handle our audio feed into us? How does cloud work? So getting to the nuts and bolts of how people are using your products. Now, as I was just telling you earlier, we're looking at designing kits that we can install inside of funeral homes, as the necessity is, and it's a terrible situation, but there is allowed to be 10 people in a building right now at least in Maryland and in Pennsylvania, in a funeral home, and that counts any of the production crew, I can mute you quick. Oh, there you go. It counts the production crew. It counts the funeral staff. Well, if I can install a BirdDog P100, P200 on the back wall, send a wireless microphone from a podium into it, and then I can produce that from my studio, we now let one more family inside of the nursing home to grieve. And we talked about, people need to go through that grieving process. It's about finding technology. And you may not have thought that this would be a great use case example for BirdDog Cloud or your camera line, but where else are you seeing some of this innovation for how people are adapting right now?
Yeah. Yeah, look, to touch on this as well, the cloud platform that we released in September last year, that comes again from having, once you've got this NDI video on a network, it is literally available anywhere. It's just a matter of routing it. So we have software routers for doing it on the local network. And then with our cloud software, we realized we could take it anywhere in the world over the public internet. So, it uses a technology called SRT, which is developed by Haivision and Wowser. Haivision are a very high-end streaming company based out of Canada. Wowser are a very high-end streaming company based out of California. And, so we use this SRT link, and that creates a pipe between two locations. And that pipe can be, it still operates on quite lossy networks. So that's one of the beautiful things. It's got all this really remarkable forward error correction. So it maintains a really high quality link between two locations. And so many companies, including vMix, have jumped onto this SRT thing now because it is a really nice way to connect things. And then from there, you can have video anywhere with our cloud platform and our cameras because they are robotic cameras that are on a network. You can then control them from anywhere in the world. So for your application, as you were talking about, you can put our cameras into the funeral homes, literally anywhere in the world, and you can then load up cloud in that location and load up cloud in your location, so 2 endpoints, and then you can control those cameras from anywhere in the world. The funeral the funeral service was not something I'd actually thought about, to be honest, but it makes a huge amount of sense. Only having 10 people at a funeral, that's heartbreaking for so many people who can't come. Anyone with a decent sized family is going to have 50 or 100 people that want to attend, but just can't. So I think it's a nice thing that you be able to bring to who physically aren't allowed to attend the funeral of a loved one. So I think it's quite a nice use case. Other use cases we're having at the moment is we've had customers like Formula One. Unfortunately, the F1 races were cancelled just before they were about to start using it. But their plan was to send data back and forth from their head location. So they've got all these, massive data. F1 is a massively data-driven sport, right? It's all about speed and tyres and all these kind of things. So they've got massive computers that are crunching the data, and they wanted to send that back and overlay it over video for internal use with the race crews and things like this, which was a really interesting use case. There's a video on our website from Euromedia, who are a massive OB company based out of France, and they do like big sporting events, like big soccer games, football games, if you're listening to this outside of Australia and the USA. They use it so they can send graphics back to their master control room, which stays in Paris, and they've got a game in Germany or something like that. And they can do the on-air graphics, send the feedback, and then that can be pushed out to air. And it means that they can save costs by not having to send so much staff and so much equipment to do that live at the ground. They can do that remotely somewhere else. We've had some talks with some of the biggest sporting leagues in the world at the moment who have other use cases that are very similar to this, in that they need to have interview rooms. Sorry, I do have a little bit of a cold. Just excuse me 1 second. Yep. Sorry, and they have interview rooms where they have, the athlete, and people aren't allowed to have contact anymore. So they'll have the athlete in a room, and they just want to turn on the camera, turn on the computer, turn on the lighting system, have some easy instructions on the wall, like flip this on, flip this on, flip this on, and then they can access that from anywhere in the world, and they can do a live interview with them, including with audio intercom and things like this. So we've been talking to some of the biggest sporting leagues in the world about that at the moment. I'm talking to a customer similar to yourself, actually, who's looking to do remote production for executives that Fortune 500 company. So obviously they're quarantined, they have to work from home, but they still need to do their corporate messaging. They still need to talk to staff. They still need to have interaction, with their teams, right? So these are, very high-end executives with thousands of people working underneath them. This way they can send them a green screen. They can send them one of our cameras. They can send, hook up a cloud license and then control those interview rooms or those streaming places from anywhere in the world. And so they could have, people all over the USA. They book in a time and then they can just control it remotely. So they don't have to send people around to do this. So they save the costs on that. They save on being able to have all of this expensive equipment. And and these executives can get their messages out to their teams really, really quickly and really simply. They can do a live stream every morning and say, hey, this is what we're doing today, all that kind of stuff. So, there's many applications. It's a funny time that we live in with this world, with everybody sort of, trying to work from home. But I sort of feel a little bit weird as a product marketing person to, sort of go out and I know you're a little bit the same, Ryan, based on the chats we had off air, but it seems weird to go after and really aggressively promote that you've got these tools to do these kind of things at the moment, but to sort of take advantage of a situation that is really terrible for so many people around the world. But I was talking to someone the other day and they put it into perspective for me. It's like, well, these people need to do these things. They have to get the message out. They have to use these video tools across the internet at the moment. You have these video tools, Eamon. So, people need them. It's not you trying to take advantage of a situation. People need these services, similar to what you're going to offer, Ryan, to your clients.
Well, and it all comes down to how ethical you are. Sure, you have the tools, just don't take advantage of people. But I think it highlights the things that we've been advocating for a long time, whether these use case scenarios in the States, we're going to get back to some level of normalcy. The world will return to some level of normalcy. But I do think that the way that things get done might forever be changed. I hear like a lot of jokes. Well, one, the situation is very serious, but you'll find out how many meetings should have been an email. And you may find out how often you could work remotely and still conduct the same level of business, but at a faster speed at a reduced cost. And that's just good for business. Mm-hmm. I mean, right now, so many businesses are being forced into closure that when things ramp back up, we may not have these huge travel budgets and things of that nature. And so we probably are going to enter into some level of normalcy. One case that I can see in the States is for what we call football, high school football. You could send out a single person with a camera, bring it into studio, have comms to that camera operator, and now from your studio producing all of these different fields and giving people kind of this immersive regional aspect instead of right now, you have the highlight game, the one game that you send your entire crew out to. But the reality is you could send a crew member to each location, bring that all back into your studio, and now you can be cutting back and forth between games, and now you're serving a greater need. That's just a use case that I could think of real quick for a lot of sports streamers that are out there.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. And, with our all-weather cameras, you can also install them permanently at the location, and they're on the network all the time. So you don't potentially even have to go there. You could just use our A200 on this, have one on one side of the field because it pans 360 degrees and it's fast enough to keep up with the action, and have one on the other side and a couple of cameras, and then you can have them on the network and you can access them from anywhere, anytime.
And those things have wiper blades.
They do, yeah. I call it the Panda because it's got a black eye. So that's our kind of internal nickname for the A200. It's got a little wiper blade on the front. It's IP67 rated, and so it'll work in temperatures from minus 40 degrees to plus 140 degrees Fahrenheit. I always get my things mixed up, but that is true. So it can work in the rain and the snow and the heat. You can sort of install these permanently in universities, high schools, things like that, and just access them anytime, and then send out your live on air crew. So your commentator of course, and maybe one or two. You still want students learning how to do video, right? So you can still have a few cameras dotted around the ground as well that are coming in. And then, you can use like something like our cloud and do the remote production from literally anywhere in the world. I can't wait, and it will happen one day, when someone sends me a photo of themselves with, a laptop running vMix or something, and they're sitting on the beach drinking pina coladas in the Bahamas or something like that. They've got a decent internet connection. They're like, look at me doing my live stream.
Well, if you want to send me to the Bahamas, I'll fire up some cameras and then we'll shoot some content. I'm totally cool with that.
Sure.
We'll get right on that. Talk to Dan, see what you can do.
Yeah. Dan, can I get the marketing budget approved? I've got this crazy idea.
Right. Well, you're going to have to go with me to shoot the photos, so no worries.
Of course.
Right. Yeah. Well,
and I go there and write the story. Make sure.
Yeah, I do think that there's a lot of options out there, and AI has entered into the space, and so. But I do think from sports, it's about teaching. Being smart, but also about teachable skills. And so if we revert to AI for everything, and, there's cameras out there that are being pushed that basically get mounted up high, 4 camera arrays, and it covers the whole thing. It's supposed to intelligently read. And I jumped onto a live stream at the time of this recording. We're in middle of March 2020, but it couldn't keep up with the game. It didn't know what to do. The audio was poor quality. The scoreboard wasn't working correctly, and I canceled my subscription for $10 a month and ditched off of the thing. Honestly, I was just peeking on it anyway. But to some degree, these are teachable skills using cameras with reducing your crew size down. But gosh, we're not putting everyone out of business though either.
No, this is the thing. I think if you reduce the crews and you reduce the cost, it means we can cover more things, right? So I see it as a positive for the industry. It means people are going out there to do live streaming. Well, they can teach it to more people, and you can have smaller businesses popping up that just specialize in doing live streaming, and they can make a living doing the 3 or 4 events that they do per week, and I see it as a really good thing. It might open up opportunities for people to establish a new business. Well,
and I even think for individuals who sell things online, Facebook Marketplace, a lot of people do live videos, but the thing that they're not really great at is simulcasting to multiple networks, to their YouTube, to Facebook, to Instagram, and wherever else. But then graphics, driving sales through graphics. Well, now a person who makes cool art things could purchase a camera, and the P100 is like $1,500 around US dollars, and they could purchase one of those cameras, have one mic feed into this, and now all they have to do is buy a subscription and let somebody else do what we do best, which is produce their content. And they get a great camera with a great sensor. We can remote control it via pan, tilt, zoom, color shading, all the nines, and now we're sitting in a studio adding graphics. We can talk back to them. Where else could you have that from for what, with microphone, could be a less than a $2,000 purchase?
Yeah, exactly, and that $2,000 can include the microphone and the LED lights, because they're pretty low cost, depending what you go for. So, yeah, and you can plug the microphone directly into the P200 as well, and it's got tally on the front, so they know if it's on or off. And if you've got multiple in there, that you can switch between them, and the people in the room can have an idea of which one's alive as well for the sort of bigger installations. But yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea. That's a really great business model. Just send out the cameras, tell the people, plug them in, or you can even go out and install them one time and say, just don't touch them from now. Right. Because they are pan, tilt, zoom cameras and you can move them around. You just need to tell them, really just point them in the general direction and I'll take care of it from there. So, and you get an HDMI loop out. We put a TV right underneath of it. Now they have a confidence monitor. With WebRTC, a low latency feedback to them. Now that's a module within cloud, but then you could be sending them graphics that you're putting up. So as you add in a comment on social media, they're now seeing that comment live and can address that person. There's a lot of things that you can do. It opens up the ability for high quality streams from other people.
whereas they would not be able to touch that before. Again, let them sell their product. Let us focus on driving sales through a high-quality stream.
Yeah, there's so many applications for that. I think you're really touching on something quite big there, Ryan. You think about, you could put a camera into a funeral home and then have that access from anywhere and sell that as a service, as a smart life streamer. Or you could put that into like a house of worship, so, churches and things like that, and say, look, don't worry about it. We understand people can't come at the moment, but we can get your message out to them quite easily. And you could just put the cameras in the church, and then you can access them from anywhere using the cloud. And don't worry, I'll control everything, and I'll make sure it gets to air and it gets to air live, and I can give you the instant feedback, as you just said, with WebRTC feedback, which is super low latency. By the way, we've had tests from Oslo to Melbourne, which is literally one side of the world to the other, and we're talking like it's so fast. It's not. We're not even talking like half a second and things. Wow. It was even lower than that. The cloud feed, the videos take a little bit longer than that, but the WebRTC is amazing. It's so fast. So you could have like real time people asking questions, and you could address those questions in real time. And I've been on enough live streams as the viewer that when you ask a question online and people answer it, you feel really special, right?
Sure.
And so it's a great way to engage with people. And it's I think that's a great idea. And there's so many applications, as I said. There's the funeral services which you're looking to do. There's house of worship. There's corporate events. There's so many different things. People trying to sell things on Amazon and eBay from their homes. All kinds of applications.
Right. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day and at a critical time that we're facing right now. Hopefully you feel better and get back to this. I know you guys have a lot of ideas, but I will say, so it's March 2020. You just released an update, 3.1 I saw for studio, dived into a little bit. Again, that's just, we don't have to, by the time somebody listens to this, we could be on 4.9 or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of old news, but this is
Sure.
the beautiful thing about the FPGAs, and I think that's just something to highlight, right? So there's new versions of NDI. So the new tech announced NDI 4.1. They announced it in April last year at. I'm getting confused. Anyway, they announced 4.1 a little while ago, but it's taken us a little time to get that baked into the chip, but now it's available. Some of those features in the chip, so it's some of the networking stuff has changed and some other things. But we added a whole bunch of stuff. So we added, alpha channel support on decode. We added a RESTful API. So now if you're using Crestron or AMX or QSC or any of these sort of, AV programming systems, you can program them with the RESTful API. And that does things like, automatic boardrooms where you go in and you press one button and it knows then to turn on the TV and, turn on the BirdDog Mini, switch to this source, put it up on the screen, pull the blinds down in the room and all that sort of stuff, So
that's great.
All of that cool. Yeah, I know. So that's built in there now, and so people can start programming them to do all kinds of things. As you said, people might listen to this 6 months down the road and think, "Oh, that's old news," but it sort of highlights the reason why we went down this route with programming FPGAs, because they are upgradable. So when NDI version 5 comes out, we'll be able to implement that into all of our products as well.
Where do you see the product lifeline? It's when we were getting ready to jump onto this call, you're like, "Hey Ryan, I have a Mac," and you'll see. I'm using a Mac in the studio, dialed into our production PC, which is Windows. But what I love, this is a 2013 MacBook, and the thing just works. Right? I have the latest Mac OS onto it, but I think I've paid a premium to be able to have that product lifespan. I mean, we're coming up on 7 years old for a computer, and this thing runs so fast. What type of product lifeline is BirdDog looking at? Have you talked internally to say, look, we know it's a major investment?
Yeah. So we have a product roadmap that will take us through to like 2025 at the moment. We've got so many ideas, like literally so many ideas. We'll be launching new firmware next week for all of our cameras and our PDZ keyboard, which is the way that you can control the cameras. We've got our... so at the moment, I think in terms of the product lifecycle and things like that, I kind of think that it's resolution based, right? So currently our Studio NDI and our Mini support formats all the way up to 1080p 60. We've got a range of 4K products that are shipping in about 2 to 3 weeks as well. But, if you're working in a HD workflow and you have no need to go 4K, well, then these products might last you for 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
I know Atomos, before they had to discontinue their Ninja 2 example, just use this as a battery. That was their best-selling product, and it was HD, and they only discontinued it 2 or 3 years ago. So, it's really resolution-based. So we've got HD products now. We've got 4K products shipping in about 3 weeks. By the time people listen to this, hopefully they're shipping. And, it's up to people to make the choice. If they want to use 4K in their workflow, well, then they can buy 4K, in 2 or 3 weeks. That might last them for 6 or 7 years, maybe 8 years. Sure. Who knows, right? It really then just depends when they go to 8K, which I don't know. That's probably 10 years down the track, right?
Right. I know Blackmagic pushes, with their Constellation and 8K, and I think Canon, obviously, we won't get to see each other at NAB this year, having it been canceled. But Canon was going to release a camera that's like a DSLR with 8K on it. It's a mirrorless camera, but there's no pipeline. I mean, in this web call of us around the world, now we're using vMix Call for this, but we still have bandwidth issues in much of the world. That hasn't been figured out yet. There's no way we can reliably stream a lot of places, even 4K.
Yeah, to be honest, down here in Australia, they've totally messed up our internet. We've spent like $50 billion to get something that's, was probably pretty good 10 years ago in the USA. So we've got some issues there ourselves, and I think that's probably a common theme across the world. So yeah, I sort of think HD products for live production and live streaming, what we're doing now, are probably going to be around for another 10 years. I don't know. People might buy the 4K products to future-proof their investment and do other things with them, use them as decoders out to 4K screens for in-venue kind of screens, which probably isn't so important right now as we're talking. But even really, region of interest. I sort of see the life cycle. Yeah, well, there's region of interest as well, and that's probably a good call. So, you can obviously shoot a 4K, quite wide image, quite a big image, and then choose a HD region out of that and then use that for streaming. And I know vMix does that very well, so you could certainly do that. So it really just, I think the life cycle of the products will be resolution. It'll depend on the resolution that we're working in at any given time in our lives.
All right, well, we're excited to be building out this studio coming up within the next week in West Palm Beach, Florida. So those cameras, I think, were ordered today. They'll be arriving, and then we're going to try to do a remote install, spin up cloud, and then apply those other things, that funeral home model. Again, not to be opportunistic, but it's a service that people need, and people need to be able to grieve. It just is a use case that we're talking about. So thank you.
Look, we're all human beings, right? I totally agree with you. If there's a funeral that I was not able to attend because I wasn't part of the core 10 people, but I wanted to be there, I'd be devastated. So I actually think it's a really good thing that you're about to embark on, and I would love to do a user story with you and a bit of a case study and show people how easy it is and what can be achieved with kit. So yeah, if you want to do that,
well, we spin up the first one. Then we can talk about that. We want to get the first one in and get things rolling. I think live streamers right now are probably much like you, getting a ton of phone calls, and it's the same people that we probably were reaching out to 8 months or a year and a half ago saying, hey, have you checked out this live streaming thing? It's not going away.
Yeah.
So now they're beating down our door saying, we've got to do this right now. And hey, great, we'd love to help you. We want to solve your problems so that you can serve your customers better too.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be completely honest with you, in the last week, I've spent more time talking about our cloud and remote production than I have any of our other products. So, today it's Saturday morning here. I jumped on this call with you, which I'm more than happy to do. And I'm actually really quite honored to be the first guest on your show. It's kind of cool.
Oh, episode 001. We'll send you a little medallion.
Yeah, well, hopefully it all works out for you. And in 5 years' time, we can look back on this and have a bit of a laugh about it. But the cloud platform that we've been talking about, it's Saturday morning here. It's just gone 10 a.m. I've got another 2 calls today with people about cloud. And, some of these people are in the EST time zone. So they're so keen to talk to us that they're booking calls at like 8 or 9 p.m. their time. So, it's obviously very topical at the moment, and people, need solutions and they need them fast. So,
yeah. Hey, well, we pray you catch a break. Pray you get a little bit better here
Okay.
and get over this cold. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in on the Smart Live Streamer. You can check us out online at smartlivestreamer.com. On our website, we will eventually have things like courses that you can take that will help up your game to become a smart live streamer. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, make sure wherever you're listening to, hit the subscribe button. Leave us a review on iTunes so that others can see those positive messages. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again real soon.